We keep hearing that, back to the office, back to the culture, back so everybody can meet in person and not over Zoom and this and that. And then I'm reading here, it was the CEO of Salesforce. This was in New York just the other day, and his talk was basically about 60% of U.S. workers who say their jobs can mainly be done from home are working remotely all or most of the time. This is according to Pew Research. Well, if 60% of workers feel they should be working from home, why are a lot of these corporations forcing employees back into the office?
It's a great question. And what's fascinating to me is that so many organizations seem to be perplexed and can't quite grasp why employees are resistant and resentful. I think organizations believe that employees want to be back. It's a form of collaboration, connecting, team building, coming up with ideas, how to solve problems. What employees are saying in reverse is that we spent the last 2.5 to 3 years demonstrating that we are loyal, we are invested, and not only are we productive, we're even more productive in the last 2 years than we've been in the office. And so the statement they're making is you need to trust us. You need to trust that we are here, that we deliver great products, and then we figured out a way to flex our hours in being able to still meet our objectives and be timely in our deliverables.
Yeah, these are big swingers that want their employees back. Jamie Dimon, J.P. Morgan Chase, David Solomon, Goldman Sachs, Elon Musk, who basically said if you're not back in the office at Tesla, my belief then is you don't want to work here anymore. So there has to be an underlying reason why that these CEOs feel this way. Is it because of culture? Is it because of control? What's going on here?
Great question. I think it depends on the industry and it depends on your job and your role. So if you're a trader on the floor, of course you must be there. I think also that we have to define what we mean by collaboration. So not all roles where the team members are collaborating at the same time. If I'm a graphic designer and I'm working with communications, I have to go away, work on my graphic design, then submit it to communications, and then submit it to the business. That's collaboration. There are other types of collaboration where you do need to be in a room together to solve for a particular business challenge and feed on each other. But your point is well taken because a lot of employees are now voting with their feet. And if they don't see merit in coming into the office, then they are looking for other employers that will promote, if not a hybrid model, then a full-time remote model. We know right now employees have won the war on talent. And so that means that employees now can call the shots where they are in high demand, and organizations have lost, unfortunately, a lot of great talent. So I think it depends on your organization, depends on the culture, and depends on the value set of the leaders who are running these organizations.
Yeah, it's a great phrase, voting with their feet. And you're right. This is all part of the Great Resignation that's been in effect really for most of the last year. There is a danger though for the employee. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm old school. I don't know, doctor. I mean, it was always viewed that if you just bounced from job to job, you were known as a quote unquote floater, and you really didn't have any roots anywhere, and you were someone to avoid. I mean, maybe corporately it's changing. Generationally, maybe it's changing, and it's not so bad. Where if you just put in a couple of years at one company and then decide, well, this isn't working out for me on a number of levels outside this building, I'll go someplace else. Maybe the world is beginning to view things as jobs as opposed to careers. Is that stretching it too far?
It's not stretching it too far. And I think you're right. The truth lies somewhere in the middle. That if you look at any job, any role, that you should be in that role for approximately 2 years. The belief is that it takes you that much time to learn the role, make your mark, and make a difference. At that point, then, the employee is usually looking for what's next. It may not mean that they have to change jobs or leave their company, but they should be having a discussion with their manager around how could I increase the complexity or the challenge of my job? What scope can I have? Can I have greater scope that allows me to feel that I'm making an even bigger contribution? So I think that's part of it. And back to your point about the great resignation, employees sort of roaming the streets looking for other jobs. I really think if you have the good fortune of working with a great manager, then you can work this out with your manager in terms of what is it that you need at home to support your family life and personal responsibilities, where we can come up with an arrangement. And so there's not a prescriptive these many days a week, but rather that's something that's negotiated with each leader.
Sure, and I think you get those things as you negotiate going into a job, and I think it's wonderful because the environments that I worked in, there was none of that.
No, me neither.
I mean, it's interesting, Dr. Waller. I mean, the whole concept of paternity leave. When I was starting out and what I did, there was no such thing. Now there is because legally you got to do it, but also there's more of an understanding, I think, among companies that people have lives outside of that company. And it's not, the abusive company that always wants you to be beholden to them, regardless of time of day, regardless of time of year. I think those are the companies that are struggling with this resignation. I think if you're a good CEO and you have good managers that understand what you want, and you can communicate that to your staff, I think you retain your employees. I think it all begins with communication, does it not?
Absolutely, 100%. And you're right. I mean, I come from also the time period where I was supposed to feel lucky and fortunate to have a job, let alone have any expectations. And I even remember there was one job I had that was weekends only. And I went to my employer and I said, I'd like to have a weekend off. And that employer promptly fired me because you are only working weekends and you want a weekend off. And fair enough, I didn't have the maturity to see that. But you are right. We come from a context, and although we've been encouraged historically to leave your personal family concerns at the door when you walk into the office, the reality is that we all have stressors and we all have pressures. And you are very right, Ken. It is important to communicate and have an open dialogue around what kind of understanding that you need. And managers today probably need to demonstrate far greater empathy and sensitivity, as you say, to their employees and understand the context to build that loyalty, to build that trust, and to build that engagement.
Dr. Cindy Waller is our guest. She works with some big companies, or has in her career, including DHL, which is very prominent here in the greater Cincinnati area, Toyota. When you walk into a company that's struggling, and I'm sure you have, and you can see that there is great dysfunction inside that company, where do you, as someone who is trying to teach leadership and get that company back on the rails, is there a place where you begin? Do you talk to certain people? You just kind of roam the hallways trying to see what's going on, the infrastructure? How does it work for you?
All of the above. So you're right. So when I'm called in, I'm usually called in for a reason, and that the executive sponsors or the leaders who are calling me in are either responding to a culture survey, an employee engagement survey, productivity, retention risks, and basically want to understand why employees are disengaged, why employees are necessarily leaving, or why teams are not working effectively. And it is my job to come in and try to understand the values of the company, how to enhance leadership skills, how to give employees a platform to feel valued. And so you're right. I go in, I observe, I assess, and then I make certain recommendations around the type of leadership skills they need to hire for, develop, and train.
Yep, I agree. Times are changing. Dr. Waller, good stuff. Good to connect with you again. Stay well. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you so much for having me.